Before meeting Modi, Trump was up to something else. He was signing a new order. To do what? To impose reciprocal tariffs. President Trump gave a simple explanation for it. If you charge us, we will charge you. Say Brazil imposes a 10% tariff on US cars, then the US will impose a 10% tariff on Brazilian cars. That is the classical definition of reciprocal tariffs. You mirror the tariff imposed on your exports. But Trump is going beyond that, and he is not sparing anyone here. Unlike his previous tariff threats, this one is not targeted. Allies, rivals, enemies, partners, Trump's latest move will affect everyone. But why is he doing it? Apparently to ensure that America gets a fair deal. Listen in.
And they say this is going to be the thing that makes our country really prosperous again. And this is going to be what pays down to $36 trillion in debt and all the other things. And this is going to be, this is an amazing day. I think this is going to be a very big day and in a very positive way for our country. The reciprocal makes tariffs really fair.
So what will be the impact of this move? In the US, it will almost certainly lead to higher inflation. But what about outside the US? It's hard to give a detailed answer now because a lot of calculations are yet to be done. Trump has ordered his team to get cracking. They will now calculate tariff rates for each country. Like I said, it's not just about mirroring rates. Trump wants to go one step ahead. He's accounting for non-tariff barriers as well. For example, subsidies. Say India imposes a 10% tariff on US cars. The Indian government also gives subsidies to domestic car makers. Then Trump is not happy with 10% reciprocal tariffs. He wants to account for the subsidies as well, which means that the US rate could be higher than 10%. So I come back to my question, what will be the impact? In one word, unprecedented. The United States is the largest importer in the world. If they impose such tariffs, the damage will be immense. We're looking at global disruptions. It makes you wonder, why is Trump doing it at all? The US president has given two main reasons. One, to correct trade imbalances. America has run a trade deficit since the 1970s, meaning they import way more than they export. In 2024, their trade deficit was $1.2 trillion. Trump wants to balance his trade. He's giving countries and companies two options, either make in the United States or buy from the United States. The second reason is to pay off America's debt. You just heard him say that. The US national debt is more than $36 trillion. Donald Trump says he will use the tariff revenue to pay it off. Again, the logic is not sound. Tariffs make up just 2% of US revenue. Even if you increase it, you will not make that kind of money. What you will get instead is inflation. And Trump has admitted this. He said prices would rise in the short term.
Oh, I think what's going to go up is jobs are going to go up, and prices could go up somewhat short term, but prices will also go down. And I think the farmers are going to be helped by this very much because product is being dumped into our country, and our farmers are getting hurt very badly by the last administration.
We'll know for sure by April. That's when the tariffs are expected to be imposed. But for now, let's focus on two questions. One, why are reciprocal tariffs a bad idea? And two, what should countries like India brace for? In an ideal world, there would be no tariffs, or at least the same tariffs. But we don't live in an ideal world. In our world, some countries are more developed and advanced. They have a stronger industrial base, hence their products will be better and cheaper. Imagine these products flooding a developing or underdeveloped market. Their domestic industry would never flourish. Homemade goods would be smothered by imports. Thus, we have different tariff rates. And that was the established trade idea of the last century. But Donald Trump is going against it. He says the world is ripping off America. Which brings us to the second question now. What should we brace for? What should India brace for? Well, Trump specifically called out India. He said India has the highest tariffs anywhere in the world.
But traditionally, India is right at the top of the pack, pretty much. There are a couple of smaller countries that are actually more. But India is a they charge tremendous tariffs.
That was minutes before hosting Prime Minister Modi, and it tells you what we're dealing with here, a calculated business mind. As for the impact, let's look at numbers first. The India-US bilateral trade is worth $129 billion. Indian exports are at $87 billion, and US exports to India are at $41 billion. So India has a trade surplus with America of around $46 billion. India's main exports include engineering goods, electronic items, gems and jewelry, pharma goods, and information technology. Now, these are the industries at risk. And the impact? Well, that depends on what approach Trump takes. Assume that he looks at how India taxes US imports, then the impact could be limited. Almost 75% of US exports to India attract less than 5% tariffs. So reciprocity will not worry New Delhi. But if Trump looks at the overall tariff rate, then it could be a problem, because India's average tariff rate is 17% and America's average is just 3.3%. So like I said, it's all about waiting and watching. India is trying to avoid a tariff war. That is why Modi has agreed to buy more US weapons and natural gas to reduce the deficit with America. The question is, will that be enough for Trump? We're calling the show Vantage. We hope you like what we put together for you. Touted as the minimum defense from that video. India's neighbors were the first to send the special edition of Vantage live from the White House throughout this week. Yes, Hindu Mandir in we're on our way to Tel Aviv. City measure, but it's also the perfect way to drive.
I don't think that
Prime Minister of Bhutan, Sherin Tagwe. Welcome to
60% of the world's
office. Prime Minister Modi did the iron.
We were actually
How are you doing? How do you like? It's been 1 year since that meeting. Iron bars separate you from the outside. Out the vote efforts. Trump had, it says, and at $4.3 trillion. 4.3 300 billion by 2030. That's what we need to tackle climate change.